Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you discovered the person you trusted most was living a double life? For Liam Carter, this wasn't a hypothetical question. It became his devastating reality on what should have been just another Friday service call. Tools in hand, Liam stepped into the luxurious beach house perched on coastal cliffs, a mansion that would soon become both the scene of his heartbreak and the backdrop for a tragedy no one saw coming. The air hung heavy with ocean salt and expensive cologne as water from a burst pipe spilled across imported marble floors. But it wasn't the water damage that would forever alter Liam's life. It was the silk scarf. His wife's silk scarf, draped carelessly over an antique chair where it had no reason to be. In that frozen moment, as recognition dawned, Liam's 15-year marriage began crumbling faster than the eroding cliffs outside. What would you do if everything you believed about your relationship suddenly shattered before your eyes? Has someone close to you ever betrayed your trust so completely that it changed who you are? The boundary between love and hatred is thinner than most people realize, until they're forced to confront it themselves. When Liam followed the sound of familiar laughter down the hallway of his wealthy client's vacation home, he couldn't have anticipated how quickly a respected community plumber could transform into something else entirely. A man driven to acts he never thought himself capable of. Before we continue with Liam's story, take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Village. Every week, we explore cases where ordinary people face extraordinary circumstances that push them beyond their breaking points. Moments where passion overtakes reason with irreversible consequences. The story of a husband's discovery, a wife's betrayal, and a lover's final moments unfolds in a beachfront paradise that would soon become a crime scene. A seemingly simple repair job that would end with one man dead and another's life sentenced to the confines of prison walls. This is what happens when trust breaks beyond repair. For 20 years, Liam Carter had been the first name locals called when pipes leaked or water heaters failed in their small coastal town of Greenwood Bay. His van with Carter Plumbing, "We fix what your husband broke," painted on its side, was a familiar sight on neighborhood streets. Clients valued his punctuality, fair pricing, and the quiet competence that came with his weather-worn hands and thoughtful approach to each job. "I'm just solving puzzles with pipes," he'd say with a modest shrug when complimented on particularly challenging repairs. Home for Liam and Vanessa was a 2-bedroom bungalow 3 blocks from the ocean. Comfortable but simple. They'd purchased it when Vanessa still taught art at the local high school, before she traded lesson plans for the prestigious position as personal assistant to Richard Langston, the coast's most prominent real estate developer. The change in Vanessa was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Designer clothes replaced her paint-splattered jeans. Working dinners became routine. The passionate conversations about color theory and student projects faded into distracted responses and glances at her vibrating phone. "It's just part of the job," she'd explain when canceling their weekend plans for the 3rd time in a month. "Richard needs these documents prepared for Monday's meeting." Had Liam looked closer, he might have noticed how she smiled differently when mentioning Richard's name, how she began styling her hair the way her boss once casually complimented, how their intimacy had transformed from a genuine connection into a mechanical routine, performed out of obligation rather than desire. While Liam spent his days unclogging drains in modest family homes, Vanessa was entering a world of champagne brunches and oceanfront property viewings. The text messages arriving late at night. The new perfume she claimed was just something from the department store. The growing silences at dinner. "Are the long hours worth it?" Liam asked one evening. "You wouldn't understand," Vanessa replied, her eyes not meeting his. "Richard is building something extraordinary. Being part of that matters. Do we recognize the warning signs of disconnection before they become irreparable? Can 2 people living under the same roof gradually become strangers? How often do we mistake our partner's growing indifference for simple distraction?" The distance between them expanded like cracks in old plumbing. Small fissures at first, then widening under pressure until the structure could no longer hold. While Liam remained anchored to the practical world of tools and repairs, Vanessa drifted toward the allure of Richard's wealth. His clifftop mansion, imported cars, and the casual way he mentioned his vacation home in Tuscany. Their foundation was weakening, and Liam, the man who fixed broken things for a living, couldn't see that his marriage had become the most damaged system in his life. Friday mornings were typically reserved for local residential jobs, but the phone call at 7:15 a.m. changed Liam's carefully planned schedule. The voice on the other end belonged to Richard Langston. Smooth, commanding, and faintly impatient. "Carter, I've got a burst pipe in the kitchen at my Seacliff property. Water everywhere. Need you here immediately." No pleasantries, no question of availability. Just the assumption that Liam would rearrange his day at a moment's notice. "I'll be there in 40 minutes, Liam replied, mentally rescheduling Mrs. Henderson's leaky faucet and the Miller's water heater installation. As Liam loaded extra tools into his van, he couldn't help but wonder if Vanessa knew about this emergency. Had Richard mentioned it to her before calling him? Would she be at the beach house too? The questions lingered as he navigated the coastal highway, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The Seacliff property stood isolated on a rocky promontory, accessible only by a private winding road lined with perfectly manicured cypress trees. Unlike the clustered homes of Greenwood Bay, this mansion commanded solitude and uninterrupted ocean views. 3 stories of glass, steel, and imported stone rose from the cliff's edge, deliberately designed to intimidate and impress. Liam parked his weathered service van beside a gleaming black Range Rover. The contrast between the vehicles a stark reminder of the worlds that separated him from Richard Langston. The salt-crusted tools in his hands felt suddenly crude and inadequate for such surroundings. "Focus on the job," Liam muttered to himself. "Just another pipe, just another repair." But as he approached the imposing front entrance, an unexpected hollowness spread through his chest. This was where Vanessa spent so many of her working hours, a place that seemed designed to make men like him feel small. The door swung open before he could knock. The empty foyer echoed with the sound of running water in the distance.
No, Richard.
No staff, just the vastness of marble floors stretching toward ocean views that ordinary people only saw in travel magazines. Have you ever stood in a space that made you question every life choice you've ever made? That's what wealth does. It doesn't just buy luxury. It purchases perspective. As Liam stepped across the threshold, following the sound of water damage, he couldn't escape a single thought. This was everything he couldn't give Vanessa. The burst pipe awaited, but something else lurked in the opulent halls of the Seacliff mansion. Something that would transform a routine repair into the catalyst for destruction. Water pooled across the imported Italian marble of Richard Langston's kitchen floor. The burst pipe beneath the sink had created substantial damage, but Liam's focus remained steadfast. This was what he did: identify problems, implement solutions, restore order. He began methodically emptying the cabinet under the sink, placing his tools within easy reach. That's when he noticed it. Draped over the back of a dining chair in the adjacent room, a silk scarf with intricate blue patterns that caught the sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Liam's hands froze mid-motion. The anniversary gift he'd given Vanessa 3 months prior. The one she claimed to keep safely stored in her dresser drawer, for special occasions only. His mind scrambled for rational explanations. Perhaps she'd loaned it to a colleague. Maybe she'd worn it to a work function here. But the mounting evidence of her frequent late nights, unexplained absences, and emotional withdrawal crystallized into a terrible suspicion. Abandoning his tools, Liam moved through the house with uncharacteristic stealth. The vastness of the mansion seemed to close in around him as he followed the sound of faint voices down a hallway lined with abstract artwork worth more than his annual income. The master bedroom door stood partially open. Inside, the California king bed faced panoramic ocean views, sheets tangled and pillows scattered. And there they were, Vanessa perched on the edge of the bed adjusting her blouse, Richard standing shirtless by the window, his hand resting possessively on her shoulder. "I should get back to the office before anyone notices," Vanessa was saying, her voice carrying the gentle laughter Liam hadn't heard directed at him in months. "Let them wonder," Richard replied, bending to kiss her neck. "What's the point of being the boss if I can't steal my favorite assistant away for an extended lunch?" Time suspended as Liam stood frozen in the doorway. The floorboard beneath his foot creaked, and both heads turned toward him in synchronized horror. Vanessa's face drained of color. Liam! His name escaped her lips like a question, as though he were the one who didn't belong in this narrative. What followed was a blur of motion and fractured moments. Richard's expression shifting from shock to calculated composure. Vanessa grabbing her purse, words tumbling out. Explanations, excuses, please. Liam backing away, his vision narrowing to a tunnel as the truth consumed everything else. Have you ever experienced that moment when something inside you permanently breaks? Comment below if you've ever faced betrayal and how it changed you. Did you see it coming? Or were you blindsided like Liam? Psychologists call this moment attachment injury, a wound that fundamentally alters how we view relationships and trust. The human mind processes romantic betrayal similarly to physical trauma, activating the same neural pathways as physical pain. For Liam, discovery wasn't just emotional distress. It was his brain and body experiencing actual injury. He drove home in silence, his tools abandoned at the mansion. The coastal highway blurred through tears he refused to acknowledge. Inside his chest, something fundamental had shifted, love calcifying into something harder, denser, more dangerous. The man who entered Richard Langston's beach house that morning wasn't the same man who left it. And the transformation had only begun. Liam sat motionless at the kitchen table for 6 hours, the wall clock marking time in a home that suddenly felt like a museum of false memories. Each photograph, each shared purchase, each corner where they'd once laughed together, all of it transformed into evidence of deception. When headlights finally swept across the living room walls at 9:37 p.m., he didn't move. The sound of Vanessa's key in the lock, the familiar rustle of her purse being set down, her voice calling his name. It all reached him as if through murky water. "We need to talk," he said, his voice unervingly calm. Her posture changed immediately, shoulders tensing, chin lifting in preparation for conflict. About what happened today, about what's been happening for months. Liam's fist came down on the table, the impact sending water splashing from his untouched glass. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" The confrontation erupted like a geyser. Accusations hurled, defenses mounted, voices rising until the neighbors must have heard every word. When the initial explosion subsided, Vanessa sank into the chair opposite him, mascara tracking dark rivers down her flushed cheeks. "For months," she admitted finally. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "Things don't just happen, Vanessa. You chose this. You have no idea what it's like," she countered, her voice hardening. "Working with someone who sees potential in me, who understands ambition. When was the last time you wanted more than this?" Her gesture encompassed their modest home. "Richard offers a life beyond fixing other people's problems in this town." Each word sliced through Liam with surgical precision. 15 years of marriage dissected and found wanting in a single conversation. "So I wasn't enough." Not a question but a conclusion. "We weren't enough for each other anymore," she whispered. "You stopped seeing me years ago." The days that followed blurred into a haze of sleepless nights and mechanical function. Liam moved through his routine like an automaton, canceling appointments, rescheduling clients. His appetite vanished. The bottle of whiskey in the kitchen cabinet emptied and was replaced twice. Vanessa packed a suitcase on the 3rd day. "I'm staying with my sister until we figure things out," she said, though they both recognized the lie in her words. There was nothing left to figure out. Have you ever wondered if you truly know the person sleeping beside you? How can someone share your bed for years while harboring such profound dissatisfaction? When trust shatters, does it ever truly reassemble, or do the cracks remain? Visible reminders of what once broke. Alone in their fractured home, Liam replayed every conversation, every distant look, every late night. The signs had been there, neon warnings he'd chosen to ignore. The betrayal consumed him from the inside out, corroding the foundations of the man he thought himself to be. 7 days after discovering the affair, Liam's phone rang. The number displayed on the screen belonged to Richard Langston. His thumb hovered over the decline button before a strange calm washed over him. He answered, "Carter Plumbing. Carter, it's Richard. That repair job you started at Seacliff isn't holding up. Water damage spreading to the dining room now. Need you back here this afternoon." The command delivered without acknowledgement of what had transpired, without even the pretense of discomfort. In the ensuing silence, Liam considered his options. Refuse the job. Send another plumber. Tell Richard exactly where he could shove his burst pipes. But something deeper, something primal, guided his response. "I'll be there at 3. The drive to Seacliff felt like a journey to another dimension. Each mile peeled away another layer of the reasonable, measured man Liam had always been. Professional ethics battled with raw vengeance as the mansion came into view. What was he doing here? What did he hope to accomplish? Richard opened the door wearing designer jeans and a casual linen shirt that probably cost more than Liam's entire wardrobe. His expression registered brief surprise at seeing Liam personally rather than another plumber. "Didn't think you'd come yourself," Richard said, leading him through the foyer. Given the circumstances, Liam's toolbox felt heavier than usual. Water damage doesn't care about circumstances. The kitchen showed signs of attempted amateur repair. Towels soaked through, a bucket overflowing beneath the sink. Richard leaned against the marble countertop, watching Liam kneel to assess the situation. "For what it's worth," Richard said, breaking the tense silence, "Vanessa and I didn't plan this. Sometimes chemistry just happens between people." Liam focused on the pipe, refusing to engage. The copper fitting had been improperly sealed, an easy fix for someone with his experience. His hands worked automatically while his mind drifted elsewhere. "She's special, you know," Richard continued, his voice carrying the casual confidence of a man unaccustomed to consequences. "Vanessa deserves better than being stuck in a dead-end life in this town."
No offense.
Each word registered like a physical blow. Liam's knuckles whitened around the wrench in his hand. The copper pipe creaked under excessive pressure. "Your marriage was already over before I came into the picture," Richard added, checking his expensive watch. "She told me how disconnected you've been, how unfulfilled she's felt for years." The beach house suddenly felt airless. Liam became acutely aware of every sound. Water dripping, waves crashing outside, his own heart thundering in his chest. The smell of Richard's cologne mixed with the scent of water damage and mildew. Sunlight reflected off the polished surfaces, creating harsh glares that seemed to mock Liam's increasingly fragile control. At what point does a person cross the invisible boundary between thoughts and actions? When does the civilized veneer we maintain crack under pressure? Is there a measurable threshold where human restraint collapses, where the accumulated weight of humiliation, betrayal, and rage finally overcomes a lifetime of social conditioning? "You know," Richard said, his voice dropping to a confidential tone, "a real man would have noticed his wife needed more, would have seen she was slipping away. But I guess that's why she came to me instead." The wrench in Liam's hand suddenly felt like it belonged somewhere else entirely. "Your wife certainly never complained about my plumbing skills," Richard laughed, swirling imported scotch in a crystal tumbler. "In fact, she said you could learn a thing or two about handling your tools properly." Something fundamental shifted in Liam's mind, a circuit breaker flipping, flooding his consciousness with raw current. 15 years of marriage, thousands of honest work days, countless moments of self-doubt, all compressed into a single white-hot point of fury. The wrench left his hand before conscious thought formed. Its arc through sunlit air seemed to happen in slow motion, Richard's smug expression transforming too late into shocked recognition of danger. Metal connected with bone. The sickening crack echoed off marble surfaces as Richard staggered backward, blood immediately blossoming across his temple. His legs buckled, sending him crashing into the kitchen island before collapsing to the floor. "You don't," Richard gasped, one hand raised defensively. "You can't." Liam moved forward, retrieving the wrench. All rational thought had evacuated, replaced by primal rage. The second blow came harder than the first. The third wasn't necessary. Richard Langston, wealthy developer, home wrecker, dead. Sprawled across imported tiles that now cradled expanding pools of crimson. His eyes remained open, reflecting the ocean view he'd paid millions to possess. The sound of waves crashing against the cliff below filtered through open windows, nature's rhythm continuing undisturbed by human violence. Blood soaked into Liam's work boots. The wrench slipped from his fingers, clattering against tile with jarring finality. Reality rushed back like freezing water. What had he done? Who had he become? The professional problem solver now faced a situation no tool could fix. His breathing came in shallow gasps as he surveyed the scene. Evidence of momentary madness with permanent consequences. No cleaning this up. No undoing what was done. His trembling hands reached for his phone, dialing 3 numbers that would end life as he knew it. 911. What's your emergency? I need to report a murder. I killed a man. Have you encountered other cases where ordinary people reached their breaking point and committed violent acts they never thought themselves capable of? Comment below if you know similar stories where betrayal led to bloodshed, where respected community members transformed into killers in moments of overwhelming emotion. The line between civilized behavior and primal violence is thinner than most of us care to admit, as Liam Carter discovered on the blood-streaked floors of a luxury beach house. Police cars lined the winding drive to Seacliff within 30 minutes of Liam's call. Officers found him sitting on the front steps, hands stained with drying blood, gaze fixed on the horizon where ocean met sky. He offered no resistance as they applied handcuffs, only quiet, monotone answers to their questions. Yes, I killed him. The wrench is in the kitchen. No, no one else was involved. The methodical man who had spent decades fixing problems now calmly documented his own destruction. His confession spared no detail. From the discovery of the affair to Richard's taunting words to the moment metal connected with flesh. Detective Williams, who recorded Liam's statement, later told colleagues it was the most straightforward murder confession he'd taken in 20 years. He described killing Richard Langston with the same precision he might use to explain replacing a water heater, the detective noted in his report. The trial lasted just 4 days. Despite his attorney's efforts to pursue a crime of passion defense, Liam refused to minimize his actions. He sat expressionless as former clients testified to his character, describing a man who had never shown a hint of violence or temperamental behavior. The defendant's actions, while provoked by extreme emotional distress, resulted in the taking of a human life, Judge Harriet Monroe stated during sentencing. This court sentences Liam Carter to 15 years in state prison for voluntary manslaughter. Greenwood Bay reeled from the shock. Weekend barbecues and coffee shop conversations centered on how their trusted plumber had transformed into a killer. Parents who had once welcomed Liam into their homes now used his story to warn teenagers about controlling their emotions. The local newspaper ran a 3-part series on the beach house murder, analyzing how a respected tradesman's life imploded in a single violent moment. Vanessa never appeared at the trial. By the time police sought her statement, she had emptied her bank account and disappeared. Rumors placed her in Seattle, then Phoenix, then overseas, each sighting less credible than the last. Her absence became part of the town's mythology, her name spoken in whispers like a cautionary tale. The beach house stood vacant for months, its ocean views tainted by violent history. Eventually, a tech entrepreneur from San Francisco purchased it at a significant discount, gutting the interior and erasing all physical traces of what had occurred. But locals still pointed it out to visitors, the mansion where passion and betrayal collided with deadly results. Meanwhile, Liam Carter, inmate number 47392, began counting days in a cell smaller than most bathrooms he had once renovated. Cell B-214 measured 8 feet by 12 feet. For Liam Carter, it became both prison and classroom, a concrete space where he studied the anatomy of his downfall during endless sleepless nights. The man who once measured pipes now measured moments, the milliseconds between Richard's taunt and his own violent response, the brief window where alternative choices might have existed. I don't regret confronting them, he told his court-appointed therapist during year 3 of his sentence. I regret becoming someone my parents wouldn't recognize. Time in prison offered clarity impossible in freedom. Liam came to understand that the luxurious beach house had embodied more than wealth. It represented the false fronts people construct. Its pristine glass exterior had concealed the rot of deception within, just as his marriage had maintained a flawless facade while crumbling at its foundation. We convince ourselves we know people, Liam wrote in a journal entry. We share beds, bathrooms, breakfast tables for years, believing this proximity equals understanding. It doesn't. Perhaps Richard and Vanessa deserved each other, both willing to sacrifice integrity for desire, both experts at compartmentalizing their lives. Yet this understanding brought Liam no comfort. The wealthy developer's blood remained forever on his hands, his own life forever altered by 5 seconds of unleashed rage. Visitors to Greenwood Bay still occasionally ask about the infamous beach house murder. Local tour guides point toward the clifftop property, now renovated beyond recognition, while explaining how passion and betrayal collided with devastating consequences. The tale serves as warning about the fragile boundaries between love and violence, how trusted community members can transform when pushed beyond endurance. If this story resonates with you, take a moment to like this video and share it with others who appreciate real-life cautionary tales. Subscribe to True Crime Village for weekly explorations of cases where ordinary decisions lead to extraordinary consequences. Every relationship harbors potential breaking points. Understanding them might prevent similar tragedies. What separates us from Liam Carter isn't moral superiority but circumstance. Many watching this have felt the white-hot flash of betrayal, the momentary impulse toward violence when trust shatters. The difference lies in the hair's breadth between impulse and action, the thin line separating thoughts from irrevocable deeds. The next time you're handed a key to someone's heart or home, remember the plumber who entered a beach house on a routine call and left in handcuffs. Trust, once broken, can't be repaired with tools, and some damage can never be undone.